What if everything you believed about the moral compass of America's conservative elite was a lie? What if behind the staged smiles, Bible verses, and patriotically choreographed press conferences, there was something far darker? Intimate betrayals, hidden affairs, surveillance tapes, and, yes, an unsolved assassination. And what if the key to unlocking it all was not a politician, not a journalist, but a wife? One who decided she'd been silent for far too long. This story doesn't begin in the spotlight. It begins in the quiet hum of betrayal. And it ends with a whisper, Usha Vance's whisper, that shattered the image of two families at the very heart of American conservatism. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. Let's be clear, this isn't just gossip. It's a political earthquake, the kind that shakes foundations and topples icons. Because when Vice President J.D. Vance, America's self-styled working-class savior, is exposed for his affair with Erika Kirk, the widow of a man recently assassinated under suspicious circumstances, the stakes suddenly shift from scandal to national security. And it all starts with one simple question. Why did Usha Vance decide to go public? She could have kept quiet. She could have played the loyal political wife, smiled through gritted teeth, raised her kids, and waited for history to forget. But instead, she detonated the story. Because this wasn't just about infidelity. This was about secrets, surveillance, power, and the threat of being silenced. She believed her husband was compromised, that Erika Kirk had leverage, that maybe, just maybe, Charlie Kirk's death wasn't random. And now, everything is out in the open. Almost. Because while Usha has exposed part of the truth, there's still so much more we don't know. Why did J.D. Vance's security detail get reshuffled weeks before Charlie's death? What did Erika mean in that now-deleted message? He knew too much. We can't go back now. And who exactly sent the burner phone to Usha, preloaded with evidence? This isn't a story you scroll past. This is a story that grips you by the throat. Let's break it down. The American public has long been obsessed with power couples, especially in politics. Barack and Michelle, Bill and Hillary, and, more recently, J.D. and Usha Vance. The clean-cut conservative sweethearts from the Midwest who rose to national prominence almost overnight. J.D. rode the wave of Trumpism while polishing his image for a broader, post-populist America. Usha, a Yale Law School powerhouse with a brilliant mind and restrained demeanor, played the part of the supportive partner perfectly. They were sharp, strategic, sympathetic, the kind of couple that made middle America proud. And then, there was Erika Kirk. Blonde, composed, stylish. Erika was the picture of modern evangelical womanhood. She ran events for Turning Point USA. She posted faith-tinged Instagram reels. She shared photos of her husband Charlie, always smiling, always seemingly rock solid. The illusion was airtight, until Usha cracked it open. Because beneath the filters and flags was a hidden relationship, one that started long before Charlie's death and, as Usha suggests, may have had a ripple effect far more destructive than anyone could have imagined. Let's pause for a moment. Why does this matter? Why should Americans care about who kissed who in a hotel room in Washington? Because this isn't just about infidelity. This is about corruption of character at the highest levels. This is about national trust. This is about how private weaknesses can become public vulnerabilities, especially when powerful people are willing to lie, manipulate, and cover their tracks to protect themselves. Now let's add in one more twist. Charlie Kirk, founder of Turning Point USA, a close friend and ideological ally of J.D. Vance, is dead. The official story? A mugging gone wrong. The rumors? A hit job. The truth? Still hidden. But here's the kicker. Usha claims that her husband and Erika were in contact, intimately and frequently, in the days leading up to Charlie's death. And one of the last messages Erika sent said this. He's asking questions. I don't know what to say. That message was never meant to be seen. It was part of a cache Usha discovered on an old tablet, a digital graveyard of secrets, messages that hadn't been fully deleted, drafts that were saved but unsent, and one audio note. That note, Usha says, is what changed everything. We don't know what it contains yet, but according to sources close to her legal team, it's damning. And she's holding it close, for now. So who is Usha Vance in this tangled web? Is she the whistleblower America needed? Or is she playing a dangerous game of political chess? Some insiders say she's prepping to divorce JD and take everything public. Others whisper she's already under surveillance, that her security has been compromised, that she's wearing a hidden mic at all times, just in case. Whatever the truth, she's done waiting in the wings. She's speaking out, carefully, deliberately, and always with enough ambiguity to leave both her enemies and the public on edge. One moment, she's dropping hints about encrypted messages. The next, she's posting Bible verses that speak of betrayal, blood, and hidden sin. It's performance art meets political reckoning, and the public is eating it up. Because let's face it, we crave these stories. We want to believe in our leaders, but we're addicted to their downfall. It's Greek tragedy, repackaged for the 24-hour news cycle. One more detail you need to know? There's a rumor, unconfirmed but persistent, that Charlie Kirk left behind a journal, a personal account of what he suspected was going on between his wife and the vice president. And in that journal, allegedly, are 3 words circled in red ink. They will pay. You feel that? That's not drama. That's dread. This story doesn't end with a press conference. It doesn't get swept under the rug by a carefully worded statement. Not this time. Because Usha Vance is on a mission, and America is finally listening. The vice president's team is scrambling. Erika Kirk is missing from social media, and Capitol Hill is whispering. But the real question remains. What else does Usha know? Because if she's willing to expose the affair, if she's willing to suggest Charlie's death wasn't random, if she's already hinted at tapes, texts, and threats, then what's next? That's what this video is here to uncover. Every chapter will peel back a new layer. Every segment will hit harder than the last. This isn't a political hit piece. It's a truth bomb, and we're just getting started. Because as you're about to see, the next revelation changes everything. What makes a power couple truly untouchable? Is it their smiles? Their matching outfits at campaign stops? The carefully filtered Instagram reels of perfect children and coordinated Christmas cards? Or is it the silence, the kind that keeps the image polished, even when everything behind the scenes is rotting? Because if you looked at JD and Usha Vance 2 years ago, you'd say they had it all. Rising stars, political capital, family values wrapped in a shiny, red, white, and blue package. But power doesn't insulate people from betrayal. Sometimes it enables it. Let's rewind the clock. Before the leaked texts, before the rumors, before the whispers of a certain blonde woman in stilettos visiting Capitol Hill at hours that didn't make sense. Let's go back to when J.D. Vance was America's golden boy. The best-selling memoir, the Senate win, the unexpected vice presidency under a fractured but dominant Republican ticket. J.D. was the blue-collar intellectual, Yale-trained but Ohio-born. A man who could shake hands in steel mills one day and debate Ivy League policy the next. And beside him, Usha, brilliant, grounded, fiercely private, the daughter of Indian immigrants who had made her mark not through speeches or headlines, but through her quiet precision and legal mind. Together, they were the ideal. The media dubbed them the new Camelot of the right. Even critics had to admit there was something magnetic about them. But perfect images rarely survive real scrutiny, because behind the smiles, something had been brewing. Slowly, quietly, tragically. And it started, not with a scandal, but with distance. You see, Usha and JD weren't always apart. Early on, she was by his side at every step. Law school, book signings, fundraisers. The infamous Senate victory party where they danced barefoot in the grass to Tom Petty's American Girl. But as the spotlight grew hotter, JD changed. Late nights at the Capitol, weekend retreats with political allies, phone calls he took behind closed doors, messages deleted, excuses rehearsed. And Usha? She began fading from public view. At first, people assumed it was strategic. She's protecting the kids. She hates the limelight. She's focused on law. But privately, friends started noticing a shift. She wasn't herself. She didn't laugh the same. She wasn't sleeping, and she asked one question more than any other. Have you seen Erika around? That name again. Erika Kirk, Charlie's wife, conservative influencer, polished, glamorous, and increasingly visible at JD's side during media appearances and closed-door roundtables. It didn't seem strange at first. Erika had always moved in these circles. Turning point events, campus activism, Republican fundraising. She was part of the ecosystem. But it was her proximity to JD that raised eyebrows. Whispers began circulating inside Beltway circles. Staffers caught glancing. A look held too long. A touch on the arm that lingered. And then there were the absences. JD missing events Usha had planned months in advance. Excuses that didn't hold up under scrutiny. He's in Ohio. No. Wait. He's in Arizona. Actually, he left his phone at home. You see what's happening here? This is where the foundation starts to crack. But here's the real twist. Usha didn't confront him. Not at first. She did something far more chilling. She watched. Quietly. Deliberately. She started taking notes. Watching calendar patterns. Noticing overlaps in Erika's schedule and JD's sudden off-grid moments. And she kept smiling in public. Because that's what political wives do. They smile while their hearts break. Let me ask you something. If you were in her position, what would you have done? Would you have screamed? Packed your bags? Blown up the story? Or would you have done exactly what Usha did, gathered proof, and waited for the moment to strike? Because the truth was, Usha suspected something deeper than an affair. She suspected strategy. She believed Erika wasn't just seducing her husband. She was leveraging him. And that scared her more than anything else. Because Erika Kirk wasn't just a pretty face with a prayer journal. She was deeply embedded in the post-Trump conservative machine. She had access. She had influence. And most dangerously, she had loyalty. Not to the truth, but to something darker. Usha began digging. And what she found made her stomach churn. Repeated calls between JD and Erika, often late at night. Unexplained gaps in JD's travel logs. Digital fingerprints connecting Erika to burner numbers used briefly and then wiped. And one image. A security camera snapshot. A blurred figure. Erika, entering the rear entrance of the Hay Adams Hotel. 11:42 p.m. JD had checked in at 11:15. That was the moment Usha stopped hoping she was wrong. That was the moment the pain turned to fury. But what came next wasn't confrontation. It was calculation. She didn't want revenge. She wanted exposure. Because in her mind, this wasn't just about her marriage. It was about integrity, national stability, the potential for blackmail, manipulation, or worse. And it all hinged on two people who once projected conservative virtue, now caught in an intimate web of secrecy, hypocrisy, and, maybe, something far more sinister. Now let's not pretend JD is the first politician to falter. But what makes this different is timing. The affair allegedly escalated just months before JD was tapped as VP. And that means Erika, then still married to Charlie, was not only involved with JD privately, but possibly during discussions of national importance. Think about it. Private liaisons, shared confidences, strategic pillow talk. How much influence did she really have? What secrets were whispered between them, believing they were safe? And why was Charlie Kirk, Erika's husband and JD's longtime friend, growing more erratic in those same months? Because here's where it gets ugly. Charlie knew, or at least he suspected. And that, dear viewer, is where the clock starts ticking. Because Erika and JD may have been sloppy romantically, but they weren't stupid politically. They knew that if Charlie found out, it wouldn't just ruin them. It might bring down the entire inner circle of the post-Trump Republican machine. And if Charlie was planning to expose it, if he had proof, that would be motive. Not for gossip, but for silence. Usha didn't just think JD had cheated. She believed he had been compromised, used, controlled, maybe even blackmailed by someone he thought he could trust. And when you think about that, when you realize that the woman who once led prayer groups and tweeted verses was possibly orchestrating this from behind the scenes, you start to wonder, how far would Erika go? What was she after? And who else knew? Because the Vances weren't just America's favorite couple. They were a facade, one Usha built with JD. And now she was watching it collapse, brick by brick. Not from the outside, but from within. And as she sat in that silence, staring at those hotel timestamps and blurred screenshots, she realized something chilling. If she didn't speak now, no one would. And that's when she picked up the phone. Not to her husband, not to Erika, but to someone who'd been following the story in the shadows. Someone who had been waiting for her call. Someone who had already been watching JD and Erika, and had been watching for months. Because this scandal wasn't isolated. It wasn't just about cheating. It was about power, leverage, control, and the people pulling the strings behind the curtain. They were just getting started. What happens when the face of purity has something to hide? What do you do when the woman who preaches virtue, loyalty, and marriage vows becomes the storm tearing someone else's apart? And what if that woman wasn't just someone's wife, but the widow of a man many believe was assassinated? This chapter is not about Erika Kirk as she wants to be seen. This is about who she really is. Because Erika wasn't always at the center of America's most shocking scandal. Once upon a time, she was untouchable, a darling of the conservative world, a speaker at Christian women's conferences, a poster child for faith, family, freedom. She posted Bible verses like clockwork. She posed with her husband, Charlie, in crisp blazers, holding hands at national events. They spoke at churches. They prayed on stage. They even led a marriage seminar. Yes, a marriage seminar, just 18 months before this story broke. So how did we get from Proverbs 31 to a private suite at the Hay Adams? Let's start with the surface. To her followers, Erika was the total package. Educated, eloquent, photogenic. She ran digital strategy for Turning Point Faith and launched her own platform for empowering women to embrace their biblical roles. Her Instagram was a carousel of floral dresses, baby dedications, and carefully lit selfies with Charlie beside her, captioned with things like, "Blessed to do life with this man." Proverbs 18 verse 22. But peel back the filters and what you'll find, if Usha Vance is to be believed, is a woman who used religion not as a foundation, but as a shield. Because according to those closest to the investigation, Erika didn't just fall into an affair. She orchestrated it, strategically, calculatedly, and she may have been doing it under Charlie's nose the whole time. Let's go back to 2024, a pivotal election year. The Republican Party fractured but gaining momentum. J.D. Vance, fresh off his VP nomination, began touring swing states, rallying the base. And guess who was coordinating many of those grassroots events? Erika Kirk. It made sense. She was an insider. She understood digital influence. She knew how to speak to the evangelical base in a language they trusted. But behind the scenes, Erika was carving out a direct line to JD. Text messages that started as logistics soon became flirtations. Late-night calls, secret prayer meetings, discussions about their spiritual connection. Sources claim JD's aides began noticing unusual behavior, messages that were deleted, phone calls that JD would step outside for, even during security briefings. And then there was the gift, a leather-bound journal with JD's initials embossed in gold, hand-delivered by Erika herself. Inside, a handwritten note. For your thoughts. We were born to lead together. Let that sink in. This wasn't just emotional cheating. This was grooming a future. J.D. Vance was a married man. Erika Kirk was married to one of his closest allies. And yet here they were, entwining their lives under the guise of ministry. Some called it emotional intimacy. Others called it seduction in slow motion. Now, let's be brutally honest. It's easy to say Erika is to blame. But this isn't about villainizing women. This is about a pattern, a behavior cloaked in sanctimony. Because while JD shares full responsibility for his actions, Erika knew exactly what she was doing. And the more you dig, the more deliberate it seems. Multiple hotel bookings under aliases, flights routed through private travel agencies, burner phones activated for 48-hour windows and then destroyed. And here's the part that should scare you. This didn't start after Charlie's death. It started months before. In fact, Usha believes that Charlie found out. And that's where everything started to spiral. Because Charlie Kirk wasn't just a conservative influencer. He was a strategist, a tactician, a man who knew where the bodies were buried, and who buried them. If Charlie was investigating Erika and JD, he might have had evidence. Evidence that, according to one anonymous source, could bring down half of CAC. But he never got the chance. He was killed in what officials called a random act of violence. A robbery gone wrong. No suspects. No clear motive. Just a body, a wallet missing, and a laptop that was, according to police logs, wiped clean. Sound convenient? Now here's where it gets even darker. After Charlie's death, Erika went full widow mode. Black dresses. Public tears. He was the love of my life speeches. But in private, she was meeting with JD within weeks. In one message, retrieved from a corrupted signal backup on Usha's old tablet, read, "You're the only one who understands what I've lost. But maybe. This is our chance now." This is our chance now. A widow mourning? Or a woman finally unshackled from a marriage she'd outgrown? Let's put this into perspective. Erika Kirk was sleeping with the Vice President of the United States, possibly before her husband was assassinated. And she was doing it while selling biblical womanhood to millions. Still think this is just a tabloid story? This is national-level deception. This is the kind of manipulation that goes beyond bedrooms and into briefing rooms. And Usha knew it. Because while the world was sending Erika flowers and thoughts and prayers, Usha was compiling screenshots, voicemails, surveillance timestamps. And she noticed something no one else did. A photo Erika posted 2 weeks after Charlie's death. She's in a field, sunlight filtering through, holding a Bible and looking upward. But in the reflection of her sunglasses, a man's silhouette, tall, suit jacket, beard, J.D. Vance. The post was deleted within 40 minutes. But Usha had already taken a screenshot. That was the tipping point. That was when the question changed from, is this an affair, to, is this a threat? Because Erika wasn't just betraying vows. She was infiltrating power. She had J.D. in her hands. Emotionally, physically, politically. And what no one could confirm, yet, is whether she was doing it alone, or for someone else. That's the theory swirling now. That Erika wasn't just acting on her own impulses, but may have been encouraged, funded even, by interests who wanted influence at the very top. Because if you control the vice president, you don't need the president. And if the VP is sleeping with someone who knows all his secrets, well, now she controls him. Now ask yourself, who benefits from that? Foreign powers? Billionaire donors? Intelligence leaks? We don't have answers. Not yet. But we do have something else. A pattern. One that began the moment Erika Kirk stepped into JD's orbit and began untangling everything he thought he stood for. Now she's in hiding. No public appearances. No new posts. Silent. But silence doesn't mean safety. And Usha? She's just getting started. Because Erika's affair isn't the end of the story. It's just the door. And what's behind it? You're not ready. How do you hide an affair when your life is under a microscope? When you're the Vice President of the United States, and she's the grieving widow of your murdered friend, how do you even begin to conceal what should never have happened in the first place? The answer? You don't. You just get very good at pretending it isn't happening. Because the story you're about to hear isn't a series of mistakes. It's a system, a network, a methodical dance of meetings, messages, and misdirection. And it started long before the press caught a whiff. Before the tabloids got suspicious. Before Usha Vance found the burner phone. Before anyone realized how many hotel room keys were involved. Let's go back to the beginning. The first message, at least the first one Usha recovered, was innocent enough. A single line from Erika to JD, sent after a political strategy dinner in Phoenix. Thank you for the conversation. You make the chaos feel manageable. A compliment. A throwaway. Maybe even harmless. But it wasn't the words, it was the time. 11:47 p.m. Sent 3 hours after the event had officially ended. And that event? JD was photographed leaving alone. But Erika? She wasn't seen at all after 9:15 p.m. So where was she during those missing hours? And more importantly, who was she with? Usha started digging. Not just as a suspicious wife, but as a woman who had once clerked at the Supreme Court. She knew how to investigate without leaving fingerprints. She went through flight manifests, hotel invoices, Uber receipts, staff calendars. She didn't want emotion. She wanted patterns. And she found one. At least 7 occasions in a 3-month span where JD and Erika happened to be in the same city, with no public explanation. Once in Atlanta, twice in Denver, once in Nashville, where JD was speaking at a Faith and Freedom conference. But this is where it gets sinister. The hotels they used? All boutique. All locally owned. All places that didn't require government credentials or Secret Service disclosures. No electronic check-ins. No VIP protocols. No visitor logs. Just whispered names. Cash payments. Room keys slipped across marble counters without a single raised eyebrow. And the names they used? Fake, but chillingly close to real. James Davison. Erika King. In one instance, a reservation under Usha Vance. Except Usha was nowhere near that city. It was as if they were taunting her. As if Erika wanted to be caught, but only by one person. Now let's talk about the phones. You see, people like JD and Erika don't use Snapchat. They don't slide into each other's DMs. That's too obvious, too traceable. Instead, they use Signal, an encrypted messaging app designed for secrecy. Every message self-destructed after 60 seconds. But here's the part that blew the lid off the whole thing. JD forgot to disable backups on his secondary device. That device, one he told Usha was just for campaign security, but it synced automatically just once to a shared family iCloud account Usha still had access to. And what she found there was a digital graveyard of guilt. Over 140 messages. Most gone. Some half-cached. A few intact. One that stood out. The suite is 614. Door will be propped. I need your hands on my skin before I lose my mind. Not exactly scripture. Another. I can't be this close to you and not risk everything. I'm ready. Are you? But the most haunting one? A voice message. JD's voice. Whispering. Breathy. Low. Intimate. Sometimes I think we were made for war. And other times, I think you're the piece I wasn't supposed to have. Usha didn't cry. She didn't scream. She didn't confront him. She copied everything to an external drive, encrypted it, and put it in a safe deposit box under a fake name. Because now she wasn't just a wife. She was a witness. And what she suspected was far bigger than adultery. She suspected leverage. She suspected manipulation. She suspected, if only in her darkest moments, that Erika might have planned this. That the affair wasn't just forbidden passion, but calculated infiltration. Now think about this. A vice president having secret meetings in unlisted hotels. A widow slipping in and out of cities under false names. And a wife compiling a dossier in the shadows while smiling for campaign photos. This isn't fiction. This is real. And it gets worse. Because on one of those hotel nights, February 18th, to be exact, something happened. JD's security detail was briefly suspended. Officially, a communication error during a routine rescheduling. Unofficially, a breach. That night, JD went completely off-grid for 4 hours. No GPS. No pings. No phone records. He reappeared at a steakhouse, alone, wearing a different tie than he'd been photographed in earlier that evening. You tell me, what happened during those missing hours? And why did Erika post a photo the next morning of a Bible on a hotel windowsill with the caption, "When your soul finally rests in his timing"? Again, deleted within the hour. But screenshots live forever. And the timing? Unmistakable. That window, that curtain style, that view, matched perfectly with the 6th-floor suites at the Hotel Magnolia. Room 614. Usha confirmed it herself. And just when she thought she couldn't be more certain, she found the keycard. Buried in JD's sock drawer. Unmarked. Generic. But magnetic stripe intact. She took it to the hotel under a fake identity, claiming she lost her card from last week's stay. The clerk scanned it. Ah yes. Room 614. Checkout was February 19th. Confirmation. Irrefutable. Erika had been there. JD had paid for the room. Cash. Using an alias. And that meant this was no longer just suspicion. This was fact. And Usha now had something solid. Something damning. But what came next wasn't exposure. It was fear. Because the moment she realized just how deep this went was the moment she received the first anonymous email. No text. Just an attachment. A photo. JD and Erika. In an elevator. She's leaning in. His hand is on her hip. He's smiling in a way Usha hadn't seen in years. The subject line? You're not the only one watching. And just like that, Usha knew this wasn't just between 3 people anymore. Someone else was following the affair. Recording it. Tracking it. Maybe using it. And if that someone was willing to reach out to her, what else were they capable of? It was no longer just about heartbreak. It was about survival. Because if someone had that elevator photo, where had they gotten it? Hotel security? A private investigator? A political opponent? Or worse, a foreign actor? You think that sounds paranoid? Usha didn't. She doubled her home security the next day, installed signal blockers, bought a Faraday bag for all devices, and she stopped sleeping. Because now she wasn't just protecting her children from betrayal. She was protecting them from something far darker. Because if the vice president was compromised, then America was too. And someone, somewhere, was pulling strings. But who? And for what purpose? That's what Usha vowed to find out. And she wasn't going to stop until she knew everything. Because what started as whispers now echoed like war drums. And the next revelation? would come in the form of an anonymous voice recording that would make the affair look like a footnote. What does it take to break a woman who has endured everything in silence? Not just betrayal, not just humiliation, but deception on a national scale. What does it take for someone like Usha Vance, an accomplished attorney, a mother of 3, a fiercely private woman, to look her husband, the Vice President of the United States, in the eye and decide she will destroy him? Let me take you there. Let me show you what it feels like, moment by moment, when a woman's world fractures beyond repair. Not in some dramatic explosion, but in quiet moments that slice deeper than any scream ever could. Because for Usha, it wasn't a single betrayal that shattered her. It was death by 1,000 whispers. Usha had grown used to secrets. You don't marry a rising political figure without understanding how to compartmentalize. She had learned early to keep her feelings boxed, to nod politely at donors, to smile even when the cameras flashed in the middle of a migraine or a marriage crack. She had survived the book tours, the Senate campaigns, the whisper campaigns, the MAGA rallies, the Yale professors who mocked her, the Ohio conservatives who doubted her. She had survived the hollow praise. She's brilliant for a wife. She's so supportive, so quiet. She's what every political man needs. Quiet. That word again. But Usha wasn't weak. She had a mind that could dismantle legal arguments in minutes. A photographic memory. A disarming calm. She was a woman of intellect. And now she was a woman with evidence. Burner phones, hotel records, leaked texts, and the elevator photo. But the final straw wasn't digital. It was something far more intimate. A scent. She was in the laundry room. A Thursday afternoon, folding JD's dress shirts, like she had done 1,000 times before. She pressed one to her face and froze. It was a perfume, not hers. Something expensive, powdery, feminine, with an edge of spice. She had smelled it before, at a gala, 2 months earlier. Erika Kirk had walked past her in a red velvet dress, and Usha had smiled tightly, nodded, and then spent the rest of the night trying not to notice how often Erika and JD gravitated toward each other. Now that scent was clinging to his collar, a souvenir of shame. Usha dropped the shirt. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just shut down. A cold stillness flooded her body. Not rage. Not sorrow. Clarity. This wasn't a marriage anymore. It was a stage play. And she had played her role for long enough. She waited until the house was quiet. The kids asleep. JD in his study, reviewing briefing notes. She opened her laptop. She didn't go to social media. She didn't call a friend. She opened a secure drive, a hidden one, where she had stored everything. The surveillance footage, the photos, the voice memos, even a spreadsheet titled Timeline of Deceit. She stared at it for 47 minutes. Then she added one more line. March 6th, shirt smells like Erika. JD denies, then changes subject. I no longer care. But caring and surrender are not the same. Usha wasn't done. She needed to know, to feel it. The truth. The whole truth. Straight from the source. So she set a trap. She waited for JD to leave for a weekend fundraiser in Nevada. Then she made a call. Not to her best friend. Not to a journalist. To Erika. The call lasted 9 minutes and 17 seconds. It was calm. Chillingly so. Usha didn't yell. She didn't accuse. She simply asked. Why? Erika didn't hang up. She didn't deny it either. Instead, her voice, once so saccharine, turned flat. Measured. Unapologetic. Because he needed someone who believes in him. Usha inhaled. I believed in him. A pause. Then Erika said something Usha would replay in her head 1,000 times over. No. You married the man he was. I saw the man he could be. It was audacity. It was entitlement. It was war. Usha hung up. And just like that, the war began. That night, Usha sat in the kitchen. Glass of water. Laptop open. She drafted an email. Subject line. Confidential, national security risk. Recipient. A journalist she trusted. A woman she once debated in law school. Now an investigative reporter with a reputation for protecting sources. She attached the elevator photo. The text logs. The burner phone timeline. She didn't include the voice recordings. Not yet. She needed leverage. But the message was clear. If something happens to me, publish this. All of it. She scheduled the email for future delivery, 72 hours. Just in case. Then she did something JD never expected. She met with his chief of staff. They sat in a small coffee shop in Georgetown. No bodyguards, no press, just two women on the edge of an unfolding disaster. The aide's face was pale as Usha slid the photo across the table. Do you understand what this means? Yes. He's compromised. Silence. Do you want to blow this up? No, Usha said. I want the truth to survive. The aide nodded slowly. And then she said something unexpected. You're not the only one collecting things. That's when Usha learned something terrifying. JD wasn't just being tracked by her. There were others. People inside the administration. Political opponents. Donors. Foreign interests. JD's vulnerability had triggered a feeding frenzy. And Erika may have been working with more than just emotion. She may have been gathering secrets. Policy drafts. Private recordings. Memos. Leverage. That night, Usha didn't sleep. She paced the hallway outside her children's rooms. She watched the shadows stretch across the hardwood floors. She whispered prayers she hadn't said in years. She wasn't scared of losing JD. She was scared of what he might still lose. If this went public the wrong way. His career, his freedom, his children, but also America's trust. What happens when the vice president is exposed not just as a liar, but as a potential national liability? What happens when a widow becomes a spy and a wife becomes a whistleblower? By dawn, Usha had made her decision. She would tell the world, but on her terms, not in a scandal piece, not in a tabloid, in a deposition, under oath, filed through her attorney. A formal legal declaration, sealed, until she decided to make it public. She would call it Statement of Material Knowledge Regarding Vice President J.D. Vance and Associated Parties. Within it, the names, the dates, the phone logs, the hotel footage, the affair, the political compromise, and, most shockingly, the theory she now believed more than any other. That Charlie Kirk didn't just find out. He was going to expose it. And he died for it. Usha didn't say it directly, but she didn't need to. In her final paragraph, she wrote, When silence becomes the currency of safety, we are already living under tyranny. I have broken mine. I pray others do the same. And with that, Usha crossed a line she could never uncross. Because from that moment forward, she was not just the vice president's wife. She was his greatest threat, and someone had already started watching her movements. Because 2 days later, an unmarked envelope was slipped into her mailbox. No return address. Inside, a photo of her children leaving school, and a message written in thick black Sharpie. Some truths are worth dying for. Are yours. What if the affair was just the surface? What if behind the lies and lust was something far more sinister? Because what started as whispers in Usha's living room would soon set fire to rooms far more powerful, inside intelligence agencies, security briefings, and, yes, the Situation Room itself. And it all started with a file. A small, encrypted, password-protected file, buried inside a folder marked Family Photos. And what it contained shocked even the most seasoned intelligence officials. Let's back up. Usha Vance knew her husband had secrets. She just didn't know how deep they ran, until she got an anonymous tip. It came through a secure email inbox she had created months earlier when she first began documenting JD's affair. The message was short. No greeting. No signature. Just one sentence. He's compromised. You're not the only one watching. Attached, a document. Encrypted. No virus. No malware. Clean metadata. But the contents? Top secret. Marked, eyes only, from an internal intelligence sharing platform used by senior advisors to the National Security Council. What it revealed? A pattern of activity, one that connected JD's personal communications with leaked fragments of internal policy drafts and talking points. Let me break this down simply. JD had been messaging Erika using encrypted apps. Those messages, at least a few of them, contained details about upcoming foreign policy discussions, messaging strategy, cabinet friction, even commentary on the president's private health issues. To a lover? Yes, but also, possibly, to someone with broader motives. Because within 48 hours of one particular text, sent from JD's secondary device to Erika during a closed-door China summit, one of the key policy proposals was leaked to a hostile foreign media outlet. Coincidence? Not likely. The leak led to diplomatic embarrassment. The press ran wild. The president was blindsided, and no one ever found the source. Until now. The document Usha received included an internal analysis. Code name: Operation Veilwire. Its goal? Identify patterns in private correspondence between high-ranking officials and unauthorized endpoints. JD's name was listed twice. So was Erika's, under a section titled Proximity Influence, Undeclared Liaison with VP. It was already known. They were already being watched. Usha was stunned, but it also explained something. The envelope, the photo of her kids, the message. Some truths are worth dying for. Are yours. It wasn't just a warning. It was a reminder. She had stumbled into something far bigger than a cheating scandal. She was walking a tightrope over a canyon of national intelligence, and one wrong move could send shockwaves through the entire government. She did the only thing she could. She reached out to a former colleague, a lawyer now working quietly at a DC firm that handled high-level whistleblower protections. They met at dusk, outside the National Gallery, speaking only in vague terms. "I need to make a protective disclosure," she said. "What kind?" "The kind that makes people disappear." That lawyer, shaken but steady, made one phone call. And just like that, Usha was placed in a holding loop, one that involved FBI officials, legal advisors, and eventually a clandestine sit-down with the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. They knew, and worse, they had suspected for months. But the political cost of pursuing it? Too high. No one wanted to be the person who accused the sitting vice president of sharing confidential material with a woman under surveillance for suspicious affiliations. And yes, Erika was being watched. Her travel history raised flags. Frequent contact with individuals connected to lobbyists from hostile governments. Donations funneled through shell organizations. Cryptic wire transfers that seemed harmless until they weren't. One flagged account traced back to a consultancy in the Cayman Islands, and on its board, a man currently on the watch list for foreign interference in multiple elections. Still think this is about a hotel fling? Think again. Here's what blew the lid off everything. A voice recording, not from Usha, but from a third party, leaked to the intelligence community through an anonymous drop. It featured Erika's voice, muffled but clear enough. "He'll say anything when he's with me. He trusts me more than anyone else. The things I know could bring the whole damn house down." She laughs. A man responds, voice still unidentified. "So why don't you?" "Because I'm not done yet." Chilling. Weaponized intimacy. Erika wasn't just involved. She was extracting information. And whether it was for personal gain, revenge, political control, or something darker, didn't matter. Because now, she was a national threat. And JD? He was the access point. The mole who didn't even know he was a mole. And Usha? She was the only one with the credibility and the moral clarity to do something about it. She made a decision. She'd testify, not to the press, not to a podcast, not to a salivating group of political pundits, but to Congress, behind closed doors, under oath, with legal protection and documentation to back every word. Her testimony would include timeline of affair, records of messages with sensitive policy details, names of officials aware and complicit, suspicious connections linked to Erika's financial footprint, the anonymous threat to her children, and, most importantly, the recording. She didn't have the original, but she had a copy. And once the FBI confirmed its metadata, unaltered, timestamped, geolocated, there was no going back. This was no longer about infidelity. It was treason adjacent. And the White House panicked. A senior aide to the president reportedly said, "If this gets out, we don't just lose a vice president. We lose the narrative. We lose trust. We lose 2028. And yet, silence. No official statement. Just carefully orchestrated distractions. JD, meanwhile, continued smiling in press briefings, quoting scripture, praising Usha for being the rock of our family. He didn't know. Not yet. But he would. Because Usha's closed-door testimony was scheduled for the following Thursday. And once the transcript leaked, it would be the shot heard around the world. But here's the thing. It never happened. Not the way it was supposed to. Because the night before her testimony, the courier delivering her key evidence drive was intercepted. The drive? Missing. The courier? In the hospital. Struck by a hit-and-run with no witnesses. Nothing stolen. Nothing else touched. Just the drive. Gone. And someone somewhere was already preparing to spin this as a case of disinformation, and conspiracy theory mongering by a scorned wife. But Usha was ready for that too. She had copies, and one of those copies was already en route. To a reporter, to an ally, to a woman with nothing to lose and a camera ready to roll. Because the next time this story is told, it won't be behind closed doors. It'll be broadcast live. And what's on that drive will make the nation question everything it thought it knew. About loyalty, about love, about leadership, and about the woman who turned betrayal into justice. Who watches the watchers? Who shadows the shadows? Because by the time Usha Vance thought she was in control of the truth, she discovered she wasn't the only one keeping tabs. Not by a long shot. In fact, the closer she got to the center of the scandal, the more she realized. Everyone was watching someone. JD was being followed. Erika was being followed. She was being followed. And behind those watchers? Different agendas, different funders, different rules. Because what began as a marital betrayal had now devolved into a full-blown surveillance war. Let's walk through it. 3 weeks before Usha's intended testimony before Congress, she noticed something strange. A white SUV, parked across the street from her home in Arlington. Always just sitting there. Lights off. Same car. Same dent on the front bumper. Sometimes different drivers. Always the same car. At first, she thought she was being paranoid. Maybe it was Secret Service. Maybe it was JD's increased security detail following the leaked threats. But then she started seeing it elsewhere. At the school drop-off line. At the corner near her favorite bookstore. In the parking lot of the attorney's office. Never following. Never too close. Just there. Watching. She called a private security consultant. A retired intelligence agent with ties to counterintelligence circles. His verdict? Not government. That's not Secret Service, ma'am. They don't linger like that. These guys are private, but well-trained. So the question became, who hired them? Here's the twist. Usha wasn't the only one noticing the SUV. JD had complained about being shadowed weeks earlier. Except his security detail hadn't logged anything unusual. And when pressed, JD reportedly grew anxious, even paranoid. It's probably Dem operatives, he told his chief of staff. Or never-Trumpers trying to build dirt. But what JD didn't know was that Erika had her own shadows too. And one of them was hired by none other than Charlie Kirk, months before his death. Let's stop right here. Because this is where the threads begin to knot. Charlie Kirk, increasingly suspicious of Erika's behavior, had hired a private investigator. Not officially, not through Turning Point, through a personal friend. Off the books, paid in cash. Why? Because Charlie suspected Erika was having an affair with someone powerful. He didn't name JD directly, but his notes, retrieved by that very PI after Charlie's death, refer to someone codenamed J Delta, a military-style codename. Coincidence? Doubtful. That PI, name redacted for his own safety, had followed Erika on 3 separate occasions. Twice to DC, once to New York. Each time, she met with J Delta at boutique hotels under different names. And yes, one of those hotels was the Hay Adams. The PI had photographic proof. He also had a partial voicemail, accidentally captured on his dashcam mic as Erika entered the hotel lobby one rainy night. He said the president doesn't even know. That's how deep I am. Let that sit for a second. That's how deep I am. Now remember, this isn't hearsay. This is recorded, verified, time-stamped, and shared with someone Charlie trusted. A colleague in the movement. A digital strategist. Someone with access to online networks and encrypted forums. After Charlie's death, the file didn't disappear. It multiplied, fragmented, was uploaded across multiple secure sites as a fail-safe. The problem? Now everyone wanted it. Which brings us back to the SUV and the other shadows. Because Usha, in her quest to expose JD, had unknowingly walked into a multi-party surveillance war. Here's the breakdown. Group 1, the Kirk loyalists. Charlie's inner circle. Angry, suspicious, wanting justice for his death. Believing Erika and JD were directly or indirectly involved. Group 2, political blackmailers. Opposition researchers, maybe from inside the Republican Party, maybe from outside. Their goal? Use the affair and any intelligence compromise to eliminate JD before 2028. Group 3, foreign intelligence assets. Yes, you read that right. Sources within ODNI confirmed non-domestic interest in Erika's movements, especially after reports that one of her speaking tour financiers had ties to shell companies connected to hostile foreign donors. Group 4. Usha's own security network. The only one acting in defense, not offense. But even they began suspecting that Erika was feeding intel to more than just JD. And the worst part? None of them were talking to each other. Everyone watching. No one warning. And Usha was in the crossfire. Let me show you how chaotic this got. One night, Usha's legal team noticed her calls were being delayed. Not dropped, just delayed. 7-second lags. Echoes on the line. Glitches. A check with cybersecurity confirmed the presence of a Stingray device in her vicinity. That's an IMSI catcher, a fake cell tower used to intercept calls and texts. Illegal for private use. But someone had deployed one near her neighborhood. For 3 days straight. She filed a complaint. No response. Then her attorney received an envelope. No return address. Inside, a photograph of Usha sitting at her laptop, taken from behind. From inside her house. There was no forced entry. No broken windows. Just a message printed in bold typeface. Truth is a dangerous weapon. Use it wisely. Now stop and think about this. A vice president's wife, holding classified material, linked to a political scandal, being stalked, photographed, threatened by multiple unknown groups. And the man at the center of it, still smiling on camera, still tweeting Bible verses, still pretending everything is under control. He had no idea how many people were watching him. Not just Usha, not just the press, but people with agendas far deadlier than a scandal sheet or a marriage meltdown. People who collect power the way others collect secrets. People who erase problems. People who erase people. And then came the mistake. One of Erika's shadows got sloppy. A private contractor, subcontracted through a shell firm in Virginia, was caught on a security camera trying to clone an access card outside JD's private briefing room in D.C. He was arrested, but within hours, released. No name given. No charges filed. Disappeared. When local reporters dug into the incident, they found the footage had been erased from 3 different digital backups. One technician at the building said simply, "We were told this didn't happen." But it did. And it proved one thing. Whoever was following Erika wasn't just interested in her. They were trying to get to JD. And what they were after? Still unclear. Leverage? Proof? Or something darker? Access. Because if Erika had pillow talk intel, and JD was slipping classified tidbits in the heat of passion, what else might she know? And more importantly, who might she tell? Now here's where the paranoia becomes reality. Because in the final days before Usha's testimony was scheduled to drop, 2 of the private investigators hired by Charlie Kirk, gone. One fled to Canada. One hasn't been seen since July. Their files, wiped. Bank accounts, frozen. And one left a note behind. It was never about Erika. It was about control. And we were the pawns. That line haunts the people still watching this case. Because what began as one woman seeking justice is now a battlefield of shadow wars. And as Usha closes in on the final, undeniable proof of what happened, of what Erika and JD did, of who knew, of who followed who first, she receives one final warning. Typed, mailed, delivered to her youngest son's backpack, tucked between homework sheets. One sentence, all caps. If you testify, he dies first. Then you. No signature, just fear. So now we ask, what do you do when everyone is watching you? Who do you trust? Who do you run to? And what if the person you're trying to expose is the only one who can protect you? Because the next revelation doesn't just pull back the curtain. It sets the whole stage on fire. What if the death wasn't random? What if Charlie Kirk, one of the most polarizing conservative voices in America, wasn't just in the wrong place at the wrong time, but was silenced, murdered, eliminated? And what if that wasn't just speculation or grief-stricken paranoia, but the cold truth hidden behind a calculated hit? Because when you connect the dots, when you really follow the trail, you begin to understand. Charlie Kirk's assassination wasn't the end of a tragedy. It was the beginning of a cover-up. Let's start with what the public was told. On a humid night in July, Charlie Kirk, founder of Turning Point USA, husband of Erika Kirk, and longtime ally of Vice President J.D. Vance, was leaving a private fundraiser in downtown Nashville. A random mugging, the police said. Just a street crime gone wrong. No suspects. No arrests. No leads. Charlie's phone was missing. So was his wallet. He was found slumped against a dumpster, stabbed 3 times in the abdomen. No witnesses. No security footage. Nothing. Case closed. Except, that story never made sense. Not to his friends. Not to his staff. And especially not to Usha Vance. Because here's what the public never knew. Charlie Kirk had been planning a press conference. One that would expose what he believed was a brewing political honey trap targeting J.D. Vance. He had discovered something about Erika, and he was ready to go public, until someone stopped him. Sources close to Turning Point say Charlie had grown increasingly erratic in the final weeks of his life. He canceled events without warning. He stopped returning Erika's texts. He confided in only a handful of trusted allies. And he wrote obsessively in a leather-bound journal. That journal disappeared the night he died. But one friend, who asked to remain anonymous, said Charlie had filled its pages with notes, suspicions, and what he called the map. The map was his attempt to link together Erika's mysterious absences, JD's erratic travel patterns, Usha's growing silence, and a sudden increase in encrypted donations to Turning Point from unknown faith-based sources. Charlie believed his own wife was involved in something bigger than adultery. He believed she was gathering influence, intelligence, leverage, and that J.D. Vance was either blind or complicit. In one eerie quote, reportedly scribbled in the margins, Charlie wrote, "They think they're discreet. But God sees everything. I will not let this stand." That's the mindset he was in. Righteous, angry, determined, and terrified. Because Charlie wasn't just uncovering betrayal. He believed there was a network forming around Erika, one he called the Ark. To this day, no one knows exactly what that meant. But he used the term repeatedly. The Ark is growing. Erika's on the inside. JD's too far gone. Usha is the key, but she doesn't know it yet. Let that sink in. Charlie was watching Usha. He saw her as the tipping point. And when you realize he died just days before a scheduled meeting with an investigative journalist, you begin to understand why so many now ask, was Charlie Kirk assassinated? Let's break down the inconsistencies. 1. The missing footage. There were at least 4 street cameras within 2 blocks of the alleged crime scene. Not one yielded usable footage. Why? Metro Nashville PD cited technical failures. 3 cameras were under maintenance. The 4th hard drive was mysteriously wiped just hours after the murder. Coincidence? Or interference? 2. The conflicting time of death. Officially, Charlie died at 9:43 p.m. But his smartwatch, which remained on his wrist, recorded a sudden spike in heart rate at 10:14 p.m. Did he survive the attack longer than reported? Or did the attack occur later? And if so, who found him first? 3. The clean kill zone. No blood trail. No defensive wounds. No DNA from the attacker. Charlie was 6 feet 5 inches, strong, and known to carry a tactical knife. And yet, no struggle? It's as if he knew the person, or was ambushed, or drugged. One unofficial toxicology report, leaked weeks later, suggested trace amounts of an experimental sedative used in military operations. It wasn't confirmed, because the second sample disappeared. Then there's Erika. Her reaction was odd. No public breakdown. No tears at the funeral. No candlelight vigils. She released a single statement. Charlie was a light to many. I will carry his vision forward. But she never elaborated. She didn't speak at the memorial. And within 2 months, she was photographed, smiling, at a private retreat hosted by donors aligned with JD. And Usha noticed something else. At that retreat, a man she recognized. Not a politician. Not a pastor. A former intelligence officer. One who'd been involved in a scandal overseas. Alleged to have helped dispose of a foreign journalist leaking state secrets. Why was he at a faith-based donor retreat? And why was Erika seen talking to him for nearly an hour, away from cameras? When Usha asked JD about it, he froze. Then said, "I'm not supposed to know about that." And walked away. That was the moment she realized. Charlie didn't die because of a robbery. He died because he knew too much. What was he going to expose? No one knows exactly, but we do have clues. One email draft, recovered from a cloud backup days before Charlie's death, was titled, "The Network, JD, Erika, and the Threat to National Integrity." In the body, nothing. Just a list of names. Some in politics, some in media. One, disturbingly, an active member of the National Security Council. And at the bottom of the draft, publish if I'm gone. He never hit send, but the document still exists, and someone else found it. Because 2 weeks after Charlie's death, that same list was referenced in an encrypted blog post on a dark web forum used by whistleblowers. The post was titled, "He died because of this." No names, just a timestamp, and a warning. What Erika carries is more dangerous than what she did. Now, what could that mean? What does she carry? Information? Proof? Something physical? Or is she herself the weapon? A manipulator? A seductress? A pawn? Or a queen? In a larger game? Because let's not forget, Charlie was supposed to meet with a journalist. She canceled at the last minute. Why? Because her credentials had been flagged by an unverified digital interference. Someone warned her off. Someone knew the meeting was going to happen. Someone stopped it. And within 48 hours, Charlie was dead. Now, months later, the questions remain. Who silenced Charlie? What was on the missing hard drive? Who's buried in that list of names? And why did Erika never ask for an investigation? Because here's the truth that no one wants to admit. If Charlie Kirk was murdered for what he knew, then his wife isn't just a widow. She's a suspect. And JD? He's either the puppet or the hand pulling the strings. And Usha? She's holding the scissors. Because the next step isn't just exposing the affair. It's finding the final message Charlie left behind. One the public has never seen. One Erika thought she erased. But one that Usha just recovered. And what it reveals will bring the whole house of cards crashing down.